Okay, we are here with John Sloan, aka Wish. Gonna ask him some of his take on the newest patch and how it relates to his class. So, John, I guess let's start with as far as your character class goes. What are some of the things that you see benefiting your class overall?
Being able to get as much gear as I want with emblems. No, I mean, benefit-wise, Priest didn't really receive much. I'm not Shadow. I don't have any interest in Shadow. And everything Holy and Discipline was nerfed. So Penance now has a 12-second cooldown versus 10, which basically makes the glyph required, reduces the cooldown by a second. And the Holy nerf, which nerf Prayer of Healing, which is what allowed me to heal 7k HPS in 25-man Leo Theb. So those... Those two things being nerfed was a little painful. On top of that, having jewel crafting slightly buffed was a benefit of sorts, but losing the prismatic properties of the gems was unfortunate. Additionally, the enchanting buff was nice for ring enchants. So overall, I feel like I was buffed slightly in regard to my professions. I don't see the jewel crafting nerf as being horrible, solely because my meta gem requires 3 red gems anyway. Have 3 prismatic. Well, we're prismatic, but 3 jewelers spell power gems. Which, moving forward, I plan to look at gemming all my slots with the new epic gems. So overall, being able to craft those epic gems will be an expense savings. And then enchanting, again, only one patch note for enchanting, and that's that the ring enchants got buffed. So I'm not entirely sure what the attack power buff was, but in regard to the spell power, it was nice. It wasn't huge, but it was a nice little kick.
So, do you think a lot of it was the nerf was maybe more to bring Priest more in line with some of the other classes, or from what you found, what would you regard as Blizzard's reason for doing that?
Well, I mean, Prayer of Healing, it received a buff by the 2-set bonus of Tier 8, increasing its crit chance. And by doing that, each crit is calculated per target, and you're hitting 5 targets per group. You have 3 of those crit out of the 5, or 2 of those crit. I mean, it's a substantial amount of healing done, and that's why Priests did extraordinarily well. Druids are also up there at the top of the charts. Obviously, seen a lot of good single target, multiple target Paladins, doing great heals as well. But I think in regard to Priests, being able to heal a whole group with one spell for a substantial amount, hitting up to 7, 8k, 9k heals per target times 5. For the mana cost, will certainly makes sense why they want to nerf it a little bit. Circle of Healing is a little bit more in that area. That's kind of what I mean. That's a talent. Prayer of Healing is available to every possible or every talent tree, regardless. It's just a base ability. So it makes sense that it would be nerfed a little bit. It's unfortunate, certainly.
Well,
the penance nerf is going to be interesting. I haven't been into Vezix since. But having that additional second, not huge, but certainly will be felt.
Well, that was my next question. Obviously, you've given it some consideration for quite some time. Obviously, yesterday with the patch coming out, stepping into 10-man Axaramas was fairly easy, and doing heroics was fairly easy. So you
aside from the safety dance, bit of a challenge. Yeah.
But have you given some thought as to let's take the Vezix fight where your MP5 doesn't even come into play, and have you given some consideration what that's going to take? What challenges do you and other priests face with fights like that?
I don't see a huge challenge. I mean, Prayer of Healing is not used at all in that fight, and that was the bigger nerf. Adding an additional second it's additional 2 seconds to Penance is certainly a challenge, but at the same time, I foresee it not being a huge issue. Certainly have to be on top of the heals a little bit more, but 2 seconds really in the course of a fight. I'll just have to supplement with maybe another flash heal or something. But again, I haven't healed this one since the patch came out, so it'll kind of need to be seen first for me to really see if it made an impact. Last night, doing 10-man ice rounds, which obviously is hardly a challenge, but I didn't notice the nerf to prayer healing, so I hopefully won't notice this too much. It's again, it's not huge. I mean, you think of some of the other class changes and how they affect base gameplay. Innervate being one. I mean, that's just a whole. It's not huge, not earth-shattering, but it certainly is going to require a different mindset than previously. You're going to have to think twice as often about Innervate. It's available more often, and maybe you'll use it more often because it's available more often. We discussed having people spamming heals at the beginning of the fight, knowing that they can pre-Innervate and then Innervate, at a later point during the fight. And then additionally, you have the changes to the shaman, which I've noticed, and those are pretty earth-shattering, being that all 4 totems dropping at once, and Earthshock being, in my opinion, nerfed, although I have not came against a melee class since I've had the new buff for change, but the fact that Earthshock does not silence anymore, Windshock still does exist, and it's a silencing ability, doesn't do any damage, and it's on a separate cooldown from Earthshock, which is nice because before your one threat reducing ability, which is Windshock, actually shared a cooldown with your other shock, so you couldn't flame shock for lava burst, that type of thing. Those are a little more fundamental changes. It's going to be interesting in PvP, but I mean, really on my shaman, I just switched out my bar and put the non-damage doing, wind shear as the new ability in place of my Earthshock. Earthshock's good for the damage, but I use it solely for the silence. So at least I have this on a separate cooldown than my Earthshock and my other shocks. And additionally, the 7% health bonus. And I know I'm deviating into shamanism, but priests are not a whole lot to discuss. but in regard to shaman, having the 7% base health buff will certainly be a bit beneficial. Although, as of right now, I'm solely elemental / resto, no, both PvE specs, due to the overwhelming request for heroics, as you can imagine right now. And sooner or later, it's just going to feel, it's beginning to feel that way, like it did near the end of Burning Crusade, where everyone was running around in merciless shoulders and weapons, and because that was the welfare gear, and that's kind of what's going to happen now.
We'll see who actually manages to, go in with all their new shiny purples. See if they actually have the coordination to go in to Ulduar and into the new 25-man arena and see what they can do.
Sure. There's certainly some pieces that I think are, I was even noticing today when I was in an instance. It's, and I'm not trying to be elitist, but when I look at people's gear, a lot of times I look and think about how they acquired that gear. I'll also compare achievements, things like that. Not because I think I'm better than them, not that I deserve anything. I got my legs from 25-man VOA. I didn't get them from 25-man Memoron. Certainly a difference in expertise and skill and dedication to get the same piece of gear in that regard. So I certainly respect the fact that I fall into the same category that I'm putting them into. But at the same time, I always look at people's gear and see, usually when I see Conqueror's gloves and legs, and I know them to not be in a raiding guild, I just assume it came from VOA. Chests and helm. Previously, there's not a whole lot of casual people that were getting that high in emblems unless they were running Ulduar often, or 25-man Ulduar. So I always had a higher respect for people who had that higher gear and knew that they experienced more content. Now it's just going to kind of be hit and miss, and it's going to be very interesting to see
You're going to see a lot more people going into and comparing achievements. All right, well, I guess next time we do one of these segments, let's talk PvP for both your shaman and your priest, and let's see where those stand with you.
Hopefully by then I'll have an opportunity to spend more time in the battleground.
All right, then. Thanks, John.